places you will be from. Closing time.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Closing Time with JD Diskin. My name is Ray Lodato, and Jay, today, big time event here at HQ, the Power Cup is going down.
That is correct, Ray. We got 4 teams. We have Team Maryland, Team New York, Jersey, and HQ battling it on the pitch.
Absolutely. And speaking of Team New York, a member of the Long Island soccer team, the $2 million man himself, everyone knows him, Sal Pesce. Sal, how you doing today?
How's it going? Glad to be here.
All right, well, Sal's glad to be here. Sal, what's the Long Island squad looking like today? You feeling confident?
We're looking like it's going to be a pretty competitive game here.
Yeah.
I think we're a little underestimated, but we'll let the soccer ball do the talking.
Yeah, no, speaking of that, you're wearing a shirt that says haters in capital letters. Was that, you planned that out?
Yeah, it was pretty planned.
Yeah?
Yep.
And what, they hate you because they ain't you? Or like, what's all that?
Yeah, you know that saying, it's true. You know how it goes. So I figured I'd just rock it good.
Yeah, well, look, you ain't nothing unless you have haters. So there you go. Sal, putting it out there early on. Now, Sal, for anybody who follows the numbers and looks at the books, it's obvious that the last couple of years you've been on that 50-cent flow, early 2000s, Get Rich to Die Trying, The Massacre, that whole thing. One of our absolute best reps here at Power. And, you don't get to that level of performance unless you really break apart the entire approach and work on a well-rounded game. What do you think are some of your best attributes as a rep, and how did you get your game to that level?
That's a really good question, Ray. I would say one of the biggest things is really appreciating, everything, how it's laid out with Power. Everyone has their spot, their positions, what they need to do. Like someone makes an appointment for you that markets it, then it's confirmed, and then, we're going out there and giving the estimate of the experience that they're supposed to be getting. And it's really building a lot of value in the company and believing it's going to be done the right way. We're not perfect. Mistakes happen, and it's not like we've done all jobs and it's like nothing ever goes wrong. But one thing about us is that we fix everything, and it's very rare those things happen. So it's like that confidence that if anything ever goes wrong, or that warranty is really covered by us.
Do you focus on anything specific when you're in home? Do you think any one portion of the script or a couple different notes within the presentation really hit home with homeowners in your experience?
One really thing, the pitch is designed very great how it is, and it's made that way for a reason, and it's really sticking to that process. But one thing, not only sticking to the process, but it's really actually relating to the homeowner and not being more of a robot of just reading what we're supposed to do. So you have to find something that you can relate with the homeowner. And one of the strong attributes I think I have is that I could find something to relate with anyone. And once you relate to them and you have the person talking about themselves and you're actually engaging in the conversation, not making it fake, that's where you get a sale happening and you become a friendship, and that's a long-term customer for Power and everyone else.
I think that's where some people get a little confused, is that they think that they have to talk about things that they as a rep know about, as opposed to things that the homeowner cares about and likes. And it doesn't matter if the things that the homeowner likes you know nothing about. What's important is being able to ask questions about those things, getting them to kind of educate you, and listening. Right, Sal? Would you kind of agree on that?
That would be a really good point there, JD. It's, having someone explain something and teaching to you, it makes that person feel a lot better. So people want to be able to help someone, or if you could take something out of, a homeowner that you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, and I really appreciate that. That's something new to learn. It definitely makes the homeowner feel at a different comfort level. It's like, oh, wow, he really cares about this. And that's what it is. It's more importantly, too, as yourself, just find something that you can have interest in as well. So it's not a fake, conversation.
And is that your number one objective going into any appointment, just trying to establish that human connection as early as possible?
That's definitely one of the biggest things that people should be doing, is not just going in there saying, okay, I got to do these 4 things and say these things and then a sale's going to happen. Like the sale happens when they like you. At the end of the day, we just knocked on their door and they have no idea about Power. They have no idea who you are. And then you're showing them a price for $30,000 that they have no idea what's happening. So if they don't have that relationship or that trust, and it has to be done in a short period of time, that sale does not happen to make it stick.
So Sal, I was speaking with Dave from our video team prior to this, and he was asking about people's routines prior to getting to the home. Do you have anything that you do when from like the time you get an appointment to getting to the house that you do every single time? Any superstitions? Any certain approach?
Tricks to get into the right mindset.
So I don't think I have many routines, but a couple things I do every day I wake up. I try to be as healthy or as health conscious as I can, but I start off with my coffee, It's called the Bulletproof coffee. So that's like my routine. I start in the morning where it's a single origin coffee, and you have a grass-fed butter, and there's something called a brain octane oil. And then I also put a collagen protein in there, and I put a raw egg yolk and a coconut oil, and that goes into a blender with the coffee.
Wow.
So, yep.
Get on the bus, Jay. We're getting taken to school right now.
Is this a served hot or cold?
This is a hot beverage. Yes.
So you're putting it into a blender.
Like a magic bullet. Yeah, one of those.
How'd you come up with that recipe?
So the recipe was designed by a guy named Dave Asprey. He's the inventor of the Bulletproof diet, more like a paleo, if people know that lifestyle. So I try to stay that way. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 70, 80% when I can be. But their original thing was the coffee, the grass-fed butter, and the brain octane oil. And then there were ways to like enhance that, and that's when the raw egg came in, and then I put the collagen protein and the coconut oil as an extra. So it was just to make sure you're getting all that nutrition and the good fats in the morning. And basically it's a big breakfast for you and a big juice of energy that you won't get that fatigue.
Chief nutritionist, Jay. I think we might have to open up a position there in the sea level.
Yeah, I mean, I was struggling. I've never seen butter eat grass before. I guess I'm not looking hard enough.
Scientific. It's very scientific.
All right, so that we have our coffee in the morning, but now, like, let's say, as an example, you get an appointment for 6:30, you get the appointment at 5 o'clock. Anything that we're doing every single time from receiving to entering the home?
Yep. So my one thing, once I get that appointment, I put it right into my navigation to see how long it will take for me to get there, so I can have ample time to get there at the scheduled time. And what I really do, I just when I'm in my truck, people know my big red truck, and I hashtag as BPM truck. If you have a Sirius radio, BPM's the station you listen to. Puts you in the zone. Puts me in the zone at least. And you just jam that all the way to the house.
Now, for our listeners who don't have Sirius, what is BPM radio?
BPM is it's like a electric dance music.
Okay, so get into the rave mindset before you.
Yeah. Start raving, I guess. Yeah. Good. And then you pull up to that house, and my thing. Once I pull up to that house, that's when I set my game plan up. And I look at like what I could already see needs to be done on the house just before I even get in there.
When you get into the house, right, do you have a series of questions that you'll typically start off with in order just to serve as an icebreaker, open the homeowner up a little bit, and just kind of get things kickstarted?
So everyone's a little different. Like, there's not like the same questions I'll ask every time. I mean, there's a couple ones you can ask, like, hey, how long you been in the house for? Oh, cool. How'd you hear about it? It's like the common questions that people have to ask. But one thing I'll just relate is when I get to the house, I'll find something that I can ask them a question about. Like if they have a car in their driveway, a car in the garage, or if there's a trophy or a picture on the wall or something like that, I'll actually ask them a question related to something in their home. If they have like a piece of furniture with like a statue that looks like it could be from Africa, from a safari or something that they picked up overseas or on a cruise or whatever, I'll pick something up like that and say, oh, where'd this come from? Pretty nice piece of decoration that you have. And that starts a conversation going. Also on the refrigerator, if you get in, there's always magnets of where people traveled. That's like another good thing too. Oh, hey, I was looking for a place to travel. How'd you like the Bahamas? I see you had a magnet. Did you go there? Did you like it? Something like that, and getting feedback where they stayed, and that should escalate at least a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation, and then it just keeps going, because through that conversation, you'll pick up another question you can ask.
Right.
So, Sal, as far as like your overall sales game, what aspect of it do you think is your strongest?
Following the pitch is definitely like a huge thing that I really do stand by. But one thing that people I relate to is with analogies. So like even going through stuff, like just to make something be clear, it's like why things are different price, and like, oh, like why is this and that? And one thing everyone knows is like in the building world, everything goes by the square foot no matter what you're buying, what product. And one big analogy, it's like, hey, you could buy laminate floor for $1, $1.50 a square foot, and then there's some hardwoods you get for $9 a square foot. So that same 2,000 square foot area could run anywhere from $2,000 all the way up to almost $20,000. And that's a pretty big range, and you're still getting a floor. So like people could relate to that, and it's just like all of our products, just like our siding is by the square foot, the roofing is by the square foot. And the same thing with the windows. You could say, look, it's half the price like this, but doing it the right way is it's this way. So just analogies are a big one that, to make them understand something simple that makes it flow.
Right, yeah, those points of reference really kind of drive home what you're talking about and make it practical as opposed to just explaining a concept or anything like that.
Now, Sal, my follow-up question would be, what part of your game do you think needs improvement, if there is anything in the game that needs to be improved?
Out of all my statistics that I would want to get better, I'd probably say my closing percentage overall is not as high as others. That's something that I'm never on the top of the board with. Still being a 5-2 player, though, it's where, a little higher than the company average, but I'm right at that 40%, 41%. I've always been in that number. There's other people that are 50 to 60% that they're, closing deals too. So that's one thing. And, I feel it's because I'm showing a lot of bigger jobs and building the value and doing the whole project, as opposed to then they're saying like, well, if we're not going to do the whole thing, it makes sense what you're saying. And I kind of took them out of not doing a smaller project. So that's one of my things that if there's a way I could try to transition to get the smaller jobs as opposed to letting them go or getting a rehash of previous customer, to get a previous customer more than at least to get something small done.
Now, Sal, I think we're going to be transitioning from sales to quality assurance. So talk to us about what you've been going through to kind of get ready for this transition.
Yeah, so this is it's a pretty big transition. And, from a normal sales schedule where you can wake up at 9 a.m., 8:39 and be ready for that 10, this is a much different going through this training of 5 weeks and just going through week 3 now, going on week 4. It's really waking up 5:30, 6 in the morning every day. And that's a new transition of me getting ready. And then after that transition, you got to adapt because the hours of sleep are not like it was. So basically my day starts off really early, and then I'm going to the Rio office, which is a little further than my current headquarters, and I'm in the installs and seeing how the operations actually work. And there's a lot of moving parts that we take for granted or don't even really know about, more of the ignorance of how the process of selling really works, because we're selling a job and then going on to the next one. So we don't actually realize how many moving parts are involved in the install, but there's a lot of things that go on from the pre-install inspection to, after that getting the crews, like the RPC scheduling them to have on the days they're supposed to and making sure they're getting there on time. And then we have the project managers that are making sure that the customers are having a great service. And then, from the field service warranties, when, sometimes a screen could break on a job from a shingle hitting it, and we got to go back and fix that pretty quickly as well. So there's a lot of moving parts to make this process go smooth.
So obviously you're moving into quality assurance, and it's clear how that information would help you in the QA department. But I also think a lot of that information could help a remodeling consultant as well, who's not involved in the QA process. What piece of information have you learned this past week that you wish you knew when you were a remodeling consultant? What would you have done differently? What would you have messaged differently to the homeowner?
So one thing, I got to go and actually be with the roof installers and see that, and really like the care in like how the chimneys really get flashed. Like we speak about it very quickly through our presentation, but like there's a lot, like that process takes a good amount of time. It's not just slapping it up there. That like actually seeing, being done and then being able to give that in more detail if someone has a question about their chimney or how it actually gets done. Also too, flashing the valleys on a roof, which it's really not explained as well as it actually happens. So like those are like the most vulnerable areas, and like the extra steps, there's 2 to 3 extra steps we're taking that you don't see very common. Definitely like the process and how everything goes so smooth and the cleanup actually gets done how we say it's going to be, and it's very rare where we're having issues along the line.
Sal, the 2 things you mentioned, the chimney and the valleys, I couldn't agree with you more. I think sometimes people forget, like when you have a fireplace and you have a chimney, how big of a open space that chimney actually is. And obviously water doesn't need a lot of space to get into your home. And that's where you see so many of the leaks. And, the chuck and the truck, how they're going to do the roof around those chimneys and in the valleys, They're not going to take the time that it takes to do it the right way. And then, of course, the homeowner is going to end up with problems and end up with leaks. And, all those areas is why we do everything the right way and how the homeowner is going to be protected. And I think that's really important for everyone listening, especially in the sales world and in the marketing world, is when you're going to a house that has a roof that you would look at and think would be a challenge to actually do, those are the homes that are that much more important that get done the right way with us.
Now, Sal, one thing that, again, anybody looking at the numbers knows well about you is that you are not shy about laying off big prices and closing those big jobs, right? I think for a lot of newer remodeling consultants, they might be maybe a little more timid about laying off the big price for fear of maybe shocking the homeowner out of interest, right? Or kind of getting them out of the mindset where they want to do the project done right away. How do you do it? How do you build enough value to where you can lay off a $50,000, $60,000 project, not have that mess up the flow of the presentation or not shock the homeowner with the sticker price?
One thing too, I think it's easier for me to relate because, I've gone through a couple of processes where I know what things cost more than the average rep. So for someone that's younger that doesn't own a home or, never been in the business before where they don't realize how much things actually cost, like when you talk about $20,000 or $30,000, like it sounds like it is a lot of money. It's not pocket change, but when you're talking about like home improvement stuff, it's not a lot of money. It's like how I relate to it. People are putting $40,000, $50,000 in the driveway in a vehicle. That is a depreciating value. So are we double the price for our home improvement products? Absolutely, but we're doing the quality and the warranties of what we're doing. So I see the value. It's more of an investment for them to be making as opposed to spending it, because a lot of the people, they can't afford, like their biggest objection is we can't afford to do it. And my thing is that's right. If you can't afford to do it with us, then you can't afford to do it twice. So save up and do what you can the right way. And that's one big thing is where I'll give them the big number. And when they see 50, 60,000, and I say, well, imagine someone doing this for 20. Like 20,000 is still a lot of money to do it the unsure way. And that's why breaking it apart, and it makes more sense to a homeowner. It's like, you've already waited this long to do this project. Why not do a small piece and wait a little bit longer till you have it for the right way?
And how about, Sal, the monthly installments? Is there anything that you're doing differently as far as like showing them the monthly installment and figuring out a way to get them to see that number as opposed to the entire amount of the project?
So one really important thing too, it's when you lay off at a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 $70,000 project, the monthly payment, goes from $600, $700, $800, $900. And at the end of the day, most people can't afford to put another $800, $900 out of their pocket because they just had it lying around. But when they see that number and you're able to find something that works in their budget, it really helps them out as well too. So one thing that before a price drop happens or they get another monthly payment, I want to get a commitment out of them after you do a proper give up and go through the process. Hey, what's the monthly payment that would fit in your budget? If you weren't $900, like what would be something that you could, and the only reason I'm asking that question too is because, if you put any money down, it lowers that payment. So by asking a question in that way, one, now you can see if they have any money to put down. So that's a big one. And if they have none, then obviously we are their only option. And two, if they do have some money to put down and they can go a cheaper route, be like, well, why don't you take that money and put it toward the right job or do a smaller one? And then getting a monthly payment, it really helps out what you can do. Also, that's how you keep your margins, high, because a lot of people say, well, how do you keep your margins so high? I'm like, well, instead of going right away to a price drop, you can actually take something out and say, hey, let me show you what will fit in your budget. Because if you're laying off at $50,000 and just going right to an initial, we could do an online survey. Well, if the payment's $600 and you drop it to $550, but their budget's $300, the price drop doesn't really make a difference in that point. So I think getting a monthly payment out of them, if they have a little money to put down, that's like a big factor. And then, when you're laying off at $900 and getting a payment to $250 or $195, it looks like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned, Sal, that I think is worth repeating is, by asking them, how much money do they have saved up for this project? When they say nothing, Chuck in the Truck for $15,000, if they don't have any money, they can't give Chuck in the Truck $7,500 and then pay $7,500 upon completion. So it's, when they don't have any money at all, they need to get the project done. They're able to get it done at a monthly installment that they can manage. And I think that's a very important thing to understand, right? Is that when the people don't have any money set aside for the project, chucking the truck is no longer a viable option.
All right. Well, look, Jay, we've been taking up enough of Sal's time here. It's 12:30 on Friday. The Power Cup's starting soon. I imagine you got to get out there and start your stretches, Sal.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to go and kick some tail out there.
Yeah. Now I heard you got no subs today for the game.
Yeah, that you heard right.
Yeah.
You heard right.
You worried about that at all, or?
Not much worries me.
Nah. All right. Yeah. So, Chris, let me ask you a question real quick. Who would you say is the GOAT of the rap game the past couple of years? Top MC. Kendrick. All right. Well, Sal, I think that's your mantle spot right now. Power. You're the Kendrick of the sales game the past couple of years, and you got the gear to back it up. Saying hi to the haters, inviting them to come take your crown.
That's right.
Ray, I must ask, why didn't you ask me who's the top of the rap game right now?
Hey, Jay, who you got?
I would have said Kendrick.
Yeah, Kendrick. Yeah. Okay. All right. Of course. I saw you at the concert a couple months back in Philly. You were front row.
That's right.
Yeah. Got called up on stage.
Big fan.
Yeah. Dapped you up and everything.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Sal, listen, man. Thanks very much for coming in and dropping some bombs on the closing time audience. I think there was a lot of really great stuff that you were talking about that we covered. Until next time, if you got any questions, fire them into digital@powerhrg.com. But for Sal Pesce and for JD Diskin, I'm Ray Lodato, ABC. Always be closing.